if you're going to build a Web3 application or company, it's very, very important to ask yourself, why am I using blockchain technology? Am I doing it because blockchain technology is all the rage, or am I doing it because the blockchain technology genuinely makes a better product that creates value? If you can build your project on a database, and it's going to work better, then you should probably build it on a database.
Hey everybody, Tanner here with WAGMI Ventures. On today's episode, we have Mark Shekleton, co-founder and CEO of SmartSeal. For anyone who's new, this is the WAGMI Ventures podcast where we do snapshots with interesting founders from across Web3. Check out wagmiventures.io to learn more about the syndicate behind the podcast. But for now, let's get into it with Mark from SmartSeal. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm here today with Mark Shekleton, co-founder and CEO of SmartSeal. Mark, how's it going today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. I'm pumped to chat here, and I know we've got a lot to talk about. So why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to building what you're building with SmartSeal?
Yeah. So I have an interesting background for someone in the crypto space. I spent 16 years in aerospace before getting into this. But my background, though, is in mathematics and engineering. So I've got a mathematics degree. And past 10 years been doing software and hardware engineering in the aerospace. Actually, not past 10 years, before SmartSeal, I did spend 10 years in the aerospace engineering. So I was really into cryptography since before even cryptocurrency came out. In the late 90s and early 2000s, I was doing a lot of studying and software development in that space. Working in aerospace, you're always cognizant of like supply chain things and where the parts are coming from, and traceability. Especially with jet engine components that I was working with. So it always had me thinking about, ways to streamline these kinds of things. And at the time, I was working with my now co-founder, Chizi Uwaga. And he's a mechanical engineer. He was working in the Orion space program. We were doing some entrepreneurial work on the side, and he had come to me. He was saying that he was making some African leather products from Nigeria and bringing them to the United States. And one of the issues that he was running into was that there were it was really difficult for a user to differentiate the difference between a counterfeit like leather product and a legitimate one. There was really no traceability.
Interesting.
There. So he asked me, can you come up with a circuit or a chip or something that we can put in these products that can give some kind of assurance to the end user as to where it came from? And so I thought about that a lot. This was back in 2018 was when I was thinking about this. We came up with a few different solutions. So one of them was like an e-ink display with a QR code that would change, and it was time synced with the server, but that didn't really go through the wash very well. And so we found some new NFC technology, and we were looking at near field communication adoption rates and how they were growing. And we thought, hey, this is like a really good opportunity, really well timed. So we started doing some development work around that, because the NFC chips are great for that application. They're flexible and they're durable. You can run them through the wash, and you don't need a battery to power them. So they basically last indefinitely. And so the new chips that we started playing with, were like, wow, we can do digital signatures with this. this is really great stuff. So we ended up realizing, this was the product, this was the opportunity here. And then combining it with blockchain was the next logical step, being able to create these secure, immutable digital deeds that are like cryptographically connected to a physical product was really, an amazing product that at the time no one had ever done. So we created the code to make that happen and a platform to manage that. And in 2020, we ended up leaving our jobs, raising some money, and we've been working on it from there.
Love it. Yeah. Okay, so this has come together as Smart Seal. How do you describe the company to someone who's brand new to the concept of NFTs, for example, and how that interacts with near field communication? Maybe versus someone who's a little more crypto native and kind of will kind of get at least the technological component behind it.
Yeah. Well, I usually say, that we give brands a turnkey solution for combating counterfeits and collecting post-sale product and experience data, and then turning products into experiences. So behind the scenes, we use NFC chips to do this. And behind the scenes, they're linked to records of ownership and origination on the blockchain, otherwise known as NFTs. So yeah, depending on who we're talking to, that, we'll either use that terminology or not. There's a lot of bad juju around the word NFT sure. Sometimes, depending on who your audience is. So, one of the things that we are super proud of is that we can make this technology work using blockchains, using NFTs, and the end user doesn't even know that they have an NFT. So in that respect, we use the words digital deed, digital certificate of ownership. And I think that's a really great way to really just describe what the technology is and the benefit of that. The value of this technology doesn't come from, the speculative nature of a digital asset. It's the asset's physical, and the digital record just shows where it came from and who owns it. So really the value comes from the utility and not so much the collectible nature of the NFT.
Yep. Super interesting. So it is fascinating, kind of this possibility of basically proving authenticity and, through that reducing counterfeits through Smart Seal. So I guess before we dig in a little bit more on that, can you talk about what kind of second order changes could be affected in the world if Smart Seal became more widely adopted? Like what would change if 10% of enterprises use something like this in their supply chain or something?
Yeah, well, I think I don't know if you've seen counterfeiting statistics, but like 3.3% of world trade is counterfeit. I mean, it's massive. And
oh wow.
it's like over $600 billion problem. And a lot of that money is used for illegal activities. It's used to fund, arms movement. It's used to fund human trafficking. It's not great. So being able to take a huge bite out of that is very exciting for us. So I think that's one of the most immediate benefits. And then to brands themselves, brands are, constantly fighting counterfeiters, and the counterfeiting technology that's out there right now is very, probabilistic, and people are still missing like people who are trained in detecting counterfeits are still missing them. And it's hurting brands, it's hurting consumers. And ultimately, being able to solve that problem and give consumers and brands the assurance of originality and authenticity is really a great thing. Trying to think of how to explain this. So stock, if you look at StockX and The RealReal and eBay, they have like third-party authenticators that are working for them. So if you want to resell an item, you have to ship it to someone who's going to look at it. They're going to smell it. They're going to check it under a microscope. And even then, like 10% of the counterfeit items still get through those checks. And that's, that dilutes the value of what people already own, what collectors own. They spend money on valuable products, and then those products get reduced in value, get diluted by counterfeits out there.
Right.
So being able to fix that, I think, is important for brands and consumers alike.
Yeah, super interesting. So I'm especially curious here for a project like this. What were some of the early challenges? Have they been kind of more technical in nature, or maybe more business challenges? And how did you and your team sort of think about solving for those challenges?
So there's a lot of technical challenges, specifically around the logistics of blockchain connected physical assets. So one of the first challenges we noticed is that blockchains are not very reliable if you're trying to generate thousands of NFTs an hour on the fly on a production line without any delay. We really hadn't seen a robust chain that could handle that kind of volume and not have like hung transactions and things. So we also noticed that there were a lot of differences in the way that people wanted to actually implement the technology. So a lot of brands would say, we want to do something where we want to sell an NFT first and then have them use that NFT to redeem the physical product. Or some brands would want to do a bunch of unique assets instead of identical assets. So solving for all those different use cases and all the logistics surrounding that was super tricky. It was a technical problem. It was a logistical problem that we solved technically by creating encoders that we ended up sending to the factory. So when we create these NFC encoders that are installed in factories, it really gives the brands the flexibility to approach their chip encoding and blockchain connecting strategy in the way that they really want to do that. And also it gives us the ability to scale very quickly because from a business standpoint, we make our money by selling as many tags as possible. And to be able to scale to the numbers of tags that are going to make this successful, we can't be sitting here in-house and programming them ourselves. We have to turn over the capabilities of encoding these tags to the manufacturers. And so that's exactly what we did. And that has really opened us up to being able to handle hundreds of thousands of tags being encoded per day. We have the capability right now to encode that at that volume. And that's really something that's important from a business perspective, being able to handle those kinds of volumes. So the encoders really solved a lot of the problems surrounding logistics and volume.
Yeah, super interesting. So similar question here. What stood out as most surprising in this work of building Smart Seal? Where, maybe surprising about building in this space or just in general, this particular company? Anything come to mind as especially surprising?
I would say that what was surprising to us was that the early adopters of this technology were small brands and startups. The larger manufacturers, the ones with the problems, are really the slowest to adopt this kind of technology.
Yeah, that makes a ton of
Yeah.
sense. That's a thing I was curious about too. Is like average response from brands when you're talking with them about Smart Seal is the value obviously awesome to them, but it's okay. It might be more of a logistic issue on their end of like, okay, how do we implement this into a really complex manufacturing process or whatever their production process looks like, uh, or does it require some education? I guess I'm curious how that typically goes with the what sounds like was your kind of earliest segment you were targeting, which was sounds like maybe larger organizations.
Right. So the larger organizations are our ideal customer. Um, but with a large organization, there's a tremendous amount of risk with implementing a very new technology like this. So you have to know that it works. So you have to be assured of the use cases and assured that there's going to be value and assured that you can pass on the cost of the tags to the consumer and that it's going to make the consumer want to buy more product. So one of the ways we do that, we add a lot of value to the tag. So it's not just authentication. We like to say it's authentication plus. We can collect post-sale consumer data based on the scans, and we can create one-to-one marketing channels through the tags to be able to push interesting offers and experiences to the end consumer. And we've seen that has been something that's enough to sort of push the needle in the cost benefit analysis to have brands want to adopt this technology. So, the smaller brands, they can afford to take the risk and try out new things. Larger brands, they want it, perfect right out the door because it reflects that brand itself, and they want to know that it's going to work. And just kind of going through that process takes a lot of time and effort. But it's kind of exciting, and 2022 has been a really exciting year for NFC technology. We're seeing more and more brands adopting this type of, post-sale consumer experience through digitally connected clothing, and the trend is only growing. So, it's becoming easier to pitch this technology to brands because they're really looking for this kind of added value now.
Love it. Yeah. So I read somewhere you'd use the word phygital, kind of spelled PHYGITAL, kind of this portmanteau between physical and digital. So
Right.
I have to imagine you've seen a lot of projects in that space, kind of that intersection. So one thing I thought might be interesting is who you've been kind of inspired by, or who you look up to in this kind of hybrid Web3 meets physical world intersection, or the phygital intersection, as you kind of put it. Anything on that?
Yeah, I think phygital is a really large, encompassing term. So, generally speaking, it means having a physical product with some kind of digital twin or digital representation or digital experience that's associated with that particular asset. And I think who's doing a really good job right now is like Nike and Artifact. They've got some really great stuff going on with augmented reality, and connecting physical items to the metaverse. It's a very, very bleeding edge frontier, but I think it kind of shows the capabilities of what's possible with this kind of tech. So we get excited when we see that kind of stuff pop up.
Yeah, I love it. So, Mark, 2 questions here, maybe as we kind of start to wrap up. First question would be your most generalizable advice for founders building, whether directly in Web3 or utilizing the technologies of Web3, based on your unique story and kind of your unique approach. What advice would you give to you joining the space say in 2023?
I would say that if you're going to build a Web3 application or company, it's very, very important to ask yourself, why am I using blockchain technology? Am I doing it because blockchain technology is all the rage, or am I doing it because the blockchain technology genuinely makes a better product that creates value? If you can build your project on a database, and it's going to work better, then you should probably build it on a database. So if you adding Web3 tech is amazing, but you need to make sure that you're building on the technological benefits of it. The technological benefits of your Web3 project are gonna be what adds value and not just what adds hype.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other piece of that is you really, if you want to make a Web3 product, Web3, people who have MetaMask wallets or understand crypto, it's still a very small market. So if you want to be successful in it, you have to figure out a way to make it accessible to the mass market by, in a lot of ways, abstracting that sort of blockchain technology, key management away from the end user. And there's some really interesting technologies that are popping up that allow that to happen now. So,
yeah, super interesting. So, Mark, what's your team working on right now, and what's the best way for people to follow along on the journey?
Right now we got our heads down. We're working on some really exciting projects. I can't talk about them at the moment, but if you follow us on Twitter at smart_seal, you'll be able to see these projects as they get released. We just finished launching the first physical NFT sold on Amazon, which is the Unicorn Steves. It's a collectible plushie project. You buy the unicorn, and there's like unicorn jokes associated with it. You scan the tag, and we're adding gamification to it, so it's a super fun project. But on top of that, we're getting into doing some bigger projects with toys and some luxury goods. And a project coming up with a music artist that's a digital project as well. So that's all to come in the next quarter or so. So, keep following us, and there's going to be some neat things coming up.
Love it. Mark, thank you so much for the time. Really interesting, and I'm excited to see all the cool stuff happening over the next few months and rest of the year and to come. So thank you for the time, and have a great rest of your week.
Well, thank you, Tanner. It was great speaking with you.